I'm Garrett Sauls. I'm a content manager at InterWorks. I am not a data professional by trade, but I have worked for a data consulting company, InterWorks, for the past 12 years. So I've had the great privilege of working with a lot of brilliant minds, a lot of multidisciplinary people who have worked with a bunch of different tools and have gotten to learn from their experience. And it's the same today with people like Annabelle and Sarah. So Annabelle, I'll have you introduce yourself and then we'll get to Sarah.
Yes, of course. So a warm welcome also from my side. My name is Annabelle Rincon. I'm living in Switzerland. I have more than 15 years experience in data analytics, more than 10 years leading teams of data analysts from different size and location. And in my last role, I was leading a center of enablement. And I'm truly convinced that enablement is a key to success of a data analytic platform implementation or any digital transformation. That's why we come up with this webinar idea around enablement with Garrett in order to learn from the best, but also to create some awareness on this important topic. So it's a great honor today to receive Sarah Bartlett. Sarah has worked in several analytic and consulting positions over the past 13 years. She is passionate about data-focused user enablement, user experience, and enabling organization. Sarah is currently, I think, on her 5th term, Tableau Visionary, 7 years Tableau Public Ambassador, and she's also co-leading the one of the biggest and more active Tableau user group, the London Tableau user group. So thank you very much, Sarah, for being our speaker today. I will let you introduce yourself a little bit deeper and maybe explain to us what you do like as an enabler.
Yeah, thank you, Annabelle. Thank you, Garrett, for inviting me on today. I think, Annabelle, I think you covered it from my intro. So I currently work at JLL as a BI Enablement Director for the EMEA region. We're global, so I have counterparts in other major regions as well. Prior to that, I ran a Center of Excellence in another organization. And then prior to that, I've worked about 7 years in consulting. So mainly with Tableau, but other BI tools as well. So all data related. But all in all, I think I've been in data for about 13 years. Got my start in Excel. But my passion is really with enablement and really helping people succeed. So you'll see a lot of my more recent roles since I've done consulting have been based around enablement and excellence and training and all those kind of things that really help people be their best.
I love that. I want to take a second too. I believe, if I remember correctly, the Tableau ambassadors were just announced recently, and both of you were on this list, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So congratulations. Truthfully, with all the, I mean, you all have so many awards, and I think it's fantastic. Obviously, very well deserved, but I love that you're still in there, that you're committed to the community, that it's like a very endearing thing. So I just wanted to, real quick, give some kudos and some props for that for another year for both of you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's been a while for both of us. And the community's changed so much over the years, but I think everyone finds their niche. And what me and Annabelle, we kind of run into each other a lot. We do similar things, run similar events, but it's really nice to be able to give back and help people for all these years.
Absolutely.
And I forgot to mention, I think also that you have another initiative called Iron Quest.
Yes, I do. So I run a community project called Iron Quest, which is based on IronViz. So IronViz actually just launched yesterday. So that's one of the biggest data viz competitions in the world, run by Tableau. I think if you get it through to the final and you get the grand prize, I think it's $15,000 US. So not bad.
Nice.
Definitely, definitely one to look for. So the way that works is there's a qualifier competition, which is just launched, runs for the duration of October. And for that, you need to build a visualization in Tableau on the topic of entertainment. So that could be something TV or movie related, music, whatever you consider entertainment to be. And then the 3 finalists then go to San Diego in April for the final. But the project I run helps people prepare to enter the competition. So my focus right now is getting people over the line. So we'll be doing a feedback initiative in the next couple of weeks to help people who are taking part and just give them feedback to help them along the way. So looking forward to that.
Well, definitely, you are very busy.
As are you, Annabelle.
Yes. So maybe can you talk about which kind of tool or skill do you enable people with in different organizations you work for?
Yeah, so currently it's Tableau and Alteryx. So they're the primary tools that we use for BI. In prior roles, predominantly been Tableau, to be honest. But I think just data visualization in general, I think a lot of these principles could be applied to any tool. I know there's obviously the training element, which is tool specific, but in terms of enablement in general, I think you'll find common themes that could be lifted and shifted to other BI tools as well, because it's not just about using the tool, it's about how do you gather stakeholder requirements effectively? How do you build at something that's fit for like a good user experience? How do you communicate with your stakeholders? There's all those kind of things that are relevant regardless of what tool that you're using.
I suppose that you don't need to be very good at all these tools to enable people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure
Well,
that you're very good at them.
oh,
But
I mean, Tableau, not Alteryx, not so much. I wouldn't call myself an expert in that. I think a lot of it depends on how strong the communities are, like the external community. So for Tableau and Alteryx, we're very lucky that they both have very strong external communities. And in the programs I currently run, we lean heavily on community. So that's both utilizing what the community puts out. So in terms of challenges, things like Workout Wednesday and the Alteryx challenges you can find on their like into their community forum, but also giving back to those communities as well. So how can we encourage our people to respond to help questions on the forums or speak at user groups? So it's those are all built into the programs that we run.
okay.
So I think in terms of being an expert, if you didn't have that network of like community, I think you would struggle if you weren't an expert in these tools to run these programs, right? There, I think you need some kind of understanding, at least baseline.
Yeah. Or maybe just following your enablement program, you can yourself come like an expert.
Yeah, hopefully.
And
I
so
love
you
this.
apply the same strategy, right, for this tool? It's like community centric.
Similar. Yeah, so both of these frameworks were developed by Fee Gordon. So Fiona
Hmm.
Gordon, she's based in Australia. Some of you will be familiar with her because she's very famous. But these are all her brainchild, and which they've been adapted. I think I'm not sure which one was first. I think it was maybe Tableau, and then it was then applied to Alteryx. The format's similar, and the principles around that are similar, but obviously we've adapted them based on the tool. But yeah, that's where they've came from. And some of this is available publicly. So for the Alteryx adventure, it's what we call it, you'll find on Tableau public a example of what our leaderboard looks like. And then there's a workbook there that will actually tell you how you can implement that in your organization as well.
It's really interesting. I'm interested to hear too, just kind of the difference between, do you find that often the Tableau users and the Alteryx users are the same people? Do you find they're like a different sort of analysts that kind of one gravitate towards one or the other? Is it that bifurcated, or is it a little more kind of like, there's a Venn diagram and some people fall in this way and that way? How do you, like, more specifics, kind of tailor to each of those types of users?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely some crossover, and that's given the
Hmm.
nature of the work that we do. Our analysts need to have the skills in both because typically they're doing their data preparation work and then they're doing the visualization part as well. But you definitely get people that sway towards one tool or another. Maybe they don't like using Alteryx, they don't like using Tableau, but they love the other one, right? And I think that's natural. I think you get people that are naturally more like data engineering minded that may not enjoy the visualization side, where you get the more creative folks that really want to focus on the front end. So I think that's to be expected. And I think in terms of in our programs, ideally we would love everyone to go through all the stages. So all of them go from rookie to rock star. So when you start off, you're kind of at level 0, you're not a rookie yet. Then you get that first badge, and then you progress through, and ideally you get to rock star. But I don't think that we would expect everyone to get that far. Like we
Yeah.
recognize that not everyone's going to go all out and do everything that they need to do to get to the highest level, but we would expect them to get maybe halfway through and maybe get a certification, and then continuously then give back. And you just by giving back, maybe you're not getting the next badge, but you'll still be getting points and recognition for the work that you are doing, even if that's just taking part in challenges and submitting workout Wednesdays and things like that. You're still actively contributing and growing your skills, and that's what's important. It's the programs are really there for our employees to level up and improve their abilities in those skills, right?
Yeah. I love that. I love the concept of badges too and points. I feel like we might. I've might have talked about that before as well. But it's interesting how just even little things can motivate people, right? And kind of get that competitive drive going. And you throw a little swag at it too. People are crazy for swag. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do, but I love that. I mean, it doesn't take much, to have a badge and a point system. So I really love that you're implementing that for users of all different types, right?
Yeah. People love shiny badges, even if they're just digital, right? And we see Tableau and Alteryx, they do the same thing. They offer out badges, and particularly Alteryx, they love badges. But it's nice because it gives people that ability to share a little bit of insight into what they're doing at work on LinkedIn. So maybe they've got that badge, they've got that recognition internally, and then they can share that on LinkedIn and say, hey, look at what I got, right? This is evidence that I'm elevating and improving my skills and giving back, which is always really nice to see. Those posts tend to go down well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love when I see them like pop up in LinkedIn. Oh, I just got the badge.
Yeah.
That's very, very nice. Personally, I could sell my soul for like some stickers, but
Yeah, I agree. You know what it is for me though, and we kind of saw this at the last Tableau conference. I'm a sucker for a tote. Like I can't stop collecting a good tote, right? Any sort of branded tote. So that's the key to my heart. I feel like t-shirts were the thing, like a few years ago and all that. But yeah, it's totes for me.
They're useful, right? Like
yeah, they are. Yeah,
yeah.
Take it to the beach. Take your books to it wherever you're going. A lot of uses.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Sarah, how do we're talking about different users, right? And when you're in a large organization, you have users of all different skill levels. And sometimes you have new users who are coming in and they're new to a tool. Maybe they have experience in another tool and they're learning a new thing. But I'm specifically interested, how do you challenge those rock stars, the people that are kind of like at the champion level who they know the tool. In fact, they probably know the tool better than most people at the organization. How do you continue to keep their interest and push them towards growth, whether that's in the tool or just growth outside of the tool?
Yeah, good question. So first of all, if you're coming into let's say you're a new starter, but you've already got a Tableau certification under your belt or Alteryx certification, you can jump a few levels. So we recognize anything you've done already that's evidence that you know what you're talking about. And chances are, we may have recruited somebody who's got a Tableau public profile or some evidence out there that they've been actively using these tools. So we will take that into account, so that there are different tracks that will help you elevate to the right level that you should be at. So we would never expect somebody to start at the basics if they've already had a lot of experience behind them. So, but in terms of the rock stars, so of course, we've got people that have reached that level. We've got people that have reached that level in both tools. And I think you naturally find those people that just want to go all out. And it's not even the badges. They just want to complete everything and give back. And I don't think those people are of the mindset that when they get that badge, it's like, oh, I can sit back and I'm done, right? It's like Annabelle and I, we've been on these like programs of Tableau for so long. And it's not like once we reach that level, we just stop, right? I think those people naturally are the kind of people that want to give back. They want to help their colleagues. They want to give back to the external community. They're the kind of people you find speaking at tugs or Alteryx user groups. And so I think naturally they'll continue to work through these challenges and whatever else that may be. So although they may have reached the top level, they can still get points. So we have a leaderboard, like I mentioned. We have one publicly available on Tableau Public. So the leaderboard shows both what level you're at, but also a number of points. And you could have more. So someone could have a lot. I think potentially you could have more points, but still be at a lower badge level than someone that's a rock star. So there is a competitive element to it in terms of the points, particularly at the top of the tables. So yeah, just being regular and taking part in activities and giving back, you'll accumulate points, so you can still progress even if you've reached that top level. And just to add as well, another thing we did recently, just last month, was a level up month. So we recognized that these programs have been established for quite a while. Like I said, we have some people that have reached rockstar in both courses. So we're like, what can we do to give another badge or give another incentive? Or maybe there's somebody out there that's just one activity away from their next badge. Wouldn't it be great if we offered some kind of incentive to help them get there? So what we did was, for the month of September, if anyone gained a badge, they would get an additional bonus level up badge. So that just for the month of September. So it's almost like an exclusive. So that really encouraged people to have a look, myself included, to see like where they were at, and then tick off those last few remaining tasks that would get them to that next stage. So I didn't realize I was very close to Rockstar on Tableau And I managed to cross off a few tasks that I'd already done. I just hadn't like submitted them.
Yeah.
And then I got my badge. So that was really nice to see other people take that leap and maybe go for a certification that they've been putting off, and then get the next badge that they were entitled to.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite clever to make this back to school or level up.
Yeah, and we did it in September because that's typically like back to school month, right? So it seemed like the appropriate time, maybe not too busy before the end of the year. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really clever. I think it's one thing to create a program, right? It's one thing to create all the resources in the world and to create a great program for people to learn. And they can do that on their own time. But I think the other part of that is kind of consistent communication and reminders. I feel like that's very underrated, no matter what you're in, whether it's data enablement or just general information sharing in an organization. People need multiple reminders that a thing still exists or this is still here. And sometimes it's that little nudge, like you said, in your case, just to be like, oh, right, I've done these things. I just need to document and do it. And then you can kind of get those points and do back up. And usually what happens, at least this is me, like if I'm on an app like Strava, right, for like running or cycling or anything like that, the moment I open it back up and I check off the thing for the whatever month, I'm back in it, right? I'm more liable to continue on that journey for a little bit, even beyond just that initial month. So that's really clever to just kind of be mindful of those communication points and remind people that a thing exists, even if functionally it's not changed, right?
Yeah, of course. And we have other things as well. So we have a gamification hour every week. So that typically alternates between our different tools. And that is set aside for learning. So typically for Tableau, we would do a Workout Wednesday challenge where one of our internal ambassadors would lead that and walk you through like kind of step by step what to do. So that was really going to help people that maybe aren't so skilled, and also the ones that are more talented or have those skills can help the newer ones. We do the same thing with Alteryx as well, where we'd walk through a workflow for an Alteryx challenge. But then that means that if you take part in those sessions every week, automatically you'll have something to submit, and get points for on both of those challenges. So even that means that there's no kind of thought process to it. Someone else has picked the challenge, and it's not necessarily the most recent one. It could be that we've gone back into the archives and found something that's relevant to like what we're doing at work. And yeah, it's just a great way to get everybody together and learning.
Oh, it was very difficult. I still remember when I was doing this. For me, it was like you build resources, and maybe it was several years ago. And you constantly, because the product evolve, you have constantly to improve yourself or do like some update. So when you have a big team, it's maybe easier. I don't know. But when you're a small team, like my way to do some update was like just maybe like doing a webinar on a new feature that was going up. And that's where I could record and have it store or but it's true that maybe you have other technique, Sarah, that you want to share with the audience.
It's difficult because
magic wand.
I don't have the magic wand, but I mean it's difficult because these tools are always changing and they're always bringing in new functionality. And you might have written some training and with some screenshots, and then a couple of weeks down the line, everything looks different because something's changed, right? Which is typically how these things work. You'll write something and then it will change. In previous roles, I've written training courses, to help people, and that content comes out of date very, very quickly. So currently at JLL, we rely on external training to supplement these programs. So we're not spending any of our resource on writing out content because just like I say, I think it's very time consuming to write content. If you think about recording videos and editing those videos, it takes a lot of time. And like I say, it can become out of date very, very quickly. So I personally think it's best to outsource where you can if you've got the budget. Plus, there's a lot of content out there for free. Like we're blessed with people like Tableau Tim, who with every Tableau release, he's there, he's on it. And currently, that's someone I would refer people to at work. So if there's a new feature that's going to be relevant to us, I would just have a look at his YouTube channel and point people to his videos.
That's fantastic. And that's what I love too about these communities. I feel like the Tableau community certainly is exemplary in this way of, yeah, there's going to be a new feature, a new release. There's going to be no shortage of people covering it and willing to share it as well. And then of course Alteryx has a community in and of itself, right, of passionate users as well who share those things, and that's super super duper beneficial. I'm curious, from both your perspectives, because I know you've both been in roles like these or actively in roles like these, right? Of what would you say the value is in having kind of a dedicated person who is dedicated to enablement, helping people along their journey with data and analytics? I mean, what's the difference between having that person and not having that person in terms of encouraging the overall growth of all your users in a given organization or user group or whatever it may be?
Yeah, do you want me to go first, Annabelle?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Of course. I think, it's invaluable, right? I think if you don't have this person, two things could happen. Either somebody will be doing a side of desk and they'll be struggling to get through everything they need to get through on top of their day job, or it won't happen at all. And then when it doesn't happen at all, what you'll see is that maybe somebody will have the bright idea of sending some people on a training course, and they'll go away on the training course and they'll come back. Then they quickly realize when they come back, and this happened to me personally when I got taught Tableau for the first time. I came back to work. I wasn't surrounded by anybody that knew how to use Tableau. I had no support network. I didn't know the community existed. So I kind of suffered in silence because I was like, I don't know how to use this. I have no one to ask. And then effectively just went back to using Excel. I was like, oh, I know Excel. I'm comfortable here. I don't know how to do this thing, so I'm therefore stuck. And then what happens is that over time you forget what you learned in the training, and then the full value of that course never gets realized. So I think it's so important that if you are going to be sending people on courses, that you have that support network in place, both in terms of enablement, but also in terms of reference material that people can look at, whether that be books, blog posts, anything like maybe on an internal intranet, anything that's going to help them or point them to where they can go for help. It's so important.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I said, it's like a big part of any data analytic implementation or platform or tool. If you don't have this kind of person, I mean, let's say that if you have it, you can see like much the benefits, because you will have someone that can either give training or orientate people like, hey, you should take this kind of training, you should have a look at this forum, you should have a look at this blog, like someone that know how you need to learn the tool and guide you through the different steps. But you have someone also that can motivate you, that can maybe sometimes monitor you and say, hey, your dashboard is quite slow, you have some technique to improve it. So yes, I mean, it's a central role. Sometimes this person is also in charge of monitoring the success story and really can say what is the value. And when you have like an enablement role, you often like report all the biggest success story and say, hey, thanks to this dashboard or this implementation, we were capable of saving this amount of money, this amount of time. And and for me, it's very crucial. If you have invested a lot of money on whatever platform, you need to have a return on investment. And for that, you need someone like this.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is most organizations that I've seen, at least more recently, they follow a hub and spoke model. So the enablement person will sit in the hub, and then you'll have the individual business units out on the spokes. And what the enablement team or person can do is help connect those teams. Typically it's quite siloed, so you'll have kind of marketing off doing their own thing and finance off doing their own thing, right, or HR doing their own thing, and they never talk to each other. And it might be that they're experiencing similar challenges, or there's some synergies that they could take advantage of, but without that central person, there's nothing to connect them together. So I've seen that work particularly well with enablement in terms of bringing people together from different organizations and building those connections. And as you say, Annabelle, like the ROI, typically without that enablement team, there's not really anyone to measure it, right? It's kind of maybe up to the spoke teams to try to figure it out, but they've got nothing to benchmark that against. you end up with a lot of people that are just lost and they're not really sure what they should be doing or where they can be going to for help. I've seen organizations when I was in consulting that one team would buy Tableau on a credit card and another team would buy Tableau on a credit card, and they ended up in a situation where they had lots of Tableau servers and nobody knew about the other one, right? And it's not efficient. But another thing is just around I forgot what I was going to say, but like it's just in terms of training. Like if you've invested in this tool, you can't just expect people to use it, right? They need training and support to get going. And what I've seen in organizations perhaps where they have an enablement function and they've invested in training for part of the organization, there may be people outside of that want to get involved and don't know how. So they kind of go out on their own and try and figure it out. And they might Google Tableau courses and they get pointed to a random course on YouTube, let's say, that's not the greatest, or they go on maybe Udemy or any of these sites where they're just kind of left their own devices and they're trying to find content with the best intentions, but the courses they find may not be the best, right? And at least if you have that enablement person, you can guide those people to the best content and the most relevant content that's going to be relevant for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Being the central person, what we forgot to say is that you can negotiate. You have much more power because you represent a bigger, the entire organization, for instance. So you can negotiate or also manage a consultant for the entire company, et cetera, et cetera. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can see where those gaps are. So as you said before about the new features, maybe something's come along and no one's got a clue how to use it. You can, if that's the case, you can spin up a webinar quickly and help everybody at the same time. It avoids that duplication of effort. You can put in standards as well. So we've not touched on it yet, but things like style guides can be so critical. And if you have someone centrally managing that, you can make sure there's not variations of that going on in different teams.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious. I mean, you mentioned style guides. What are some other like enablement pillars that you've seen be really successful in terms of resourcing or even just tactics that, again, regardless of the group that you're working with, regardless of maybe even the tools that you're using, what are those things that just seem to stick?
Yeah, so style guides would definitely be one.
Mm-hmm.
Another one would be like a Tableau or data doctor program. So somewhere where people can go for point in time support. So let's say they're stuck on a calculation and you know how it is. You once you get stuck, you can't progress to the next stage until you fix this calculation, and it's the worst thing in the world. So having somewhere they can go for that support, whether that be an hourly like drop-in session on a Tuesday and a Thursday, or it could be something more on a bookable basis, just like you would book a doctor's appointment with a real doctor, just having that for someone who's stuck with a data problem. Those kind of programs would be invaluable, because sometimes it's difficult to articulate the problem that you're having, right? If you especially if you're newer, you might be able to put that into words and ask a question on a forum that's going to get you the right answer. What we've seen more recently actually is being able to leverage like ChatGPT for things like that. So, but again, I think that still requires some level of expertise to interpret the result and figure out, is it going to work? Or maybe you can copy and paste what ChatGPT says, but there's no guarantee it's going to help, right? It's so you still need that enablement person, but there's certainly some value, I think, in having ChatGPT as a backup. Other things would include just having a central point where everything can live, so that whether that be on an intranet site, on something like Confluence, but having and this is separate to like Teams or Slack, but somewhere where you can just have a central hub where all of the content will live, all the links that everyone needs will live. And in addition to that, having somewhere where people can chat. So whether that be, like I say, Slack, Teams, Google Chat, whatever that may be. And within there, having different channels for different topics. I've seen that work really well. And then I think also having a robust onboarding process. So when someone new comes into the organization, making sure that you're taking the time to, whether that be an automated process or physically meeting with them, but taking the time to introduce them to like how things are set up at the organization, getting them connected, getting them, the toughest thing being new is, how do I install Tableau? And that, so a simple question like that can be more difficult than it needs to be. So helping them with that, pointing them to IT or wherever that may be, but also making them aware of all of the enablement practices you have in place as well, because if they don't know, they won't take advantage of it.
Do you have some mandatory training for the first installation, for instance, or whatever software?
Training on.
Yeah, mandatory. So, for instance, a user like to download whatever software, but to keep the software, he should like perform at least one training or start a skill development.
So we have a capstone project. So that's tied to our style guide. So we have training on the style guide. So that's a couple of videos. It's probably an hour long. You can walk through all the things like colors, formatting, things like that. And then after that, you'd be expected to complete a capstone project, which is effectively where you build a dashboard and put that learning into practice and align the dashboard to the guidelines. And so it's not until you've done that are you kind of set free and can go off and build stuff for yourself. And I think that's really important, because what I've seen by doing that is and it's quite difficult. For myself, we all go through the training. I did it myself when I joined. And I think you go through the training and think, oh yeah, this is great. I understand. And then when you actually come to put it into practice, it's quite difficult because you're faced with a blank screen. You don't know what colors to pick. So having that in place is great, because not only do you get to practice, but you get the support of somebody that can talk you through it. And I think by doing that, we see where maybe there's somebody that clearly needs some more support with their Tableau skills. So if we can identify that in somebody, then we can help them. I think otherwise, if you didn't have that in place and just going to set everyone free, people would struggle. You'd see varying levels of design kind of competence in your outputs. But it just ensures everyone's on the same page and we can give support where it's needed.
Mm-hmm. I love what you said about onboarding. This is from a totally different frame of reference. So my role as a content manager, and I work with a lot of InterWorks consultants and stuff like that on getting tips, whatever, something that's helpful out into the community out there. That's a big part of my team's job. And one thing we had a few years ago was this onboarding process, kind of to this point, for any analytics consultants who came on, is yes, of course, you're going to be well versed in Tableau. Yes, do the advanced training, all that, go through the official things. But we would have them essentially just build a dashboard, a creative, fun dashboard, not anything pertaining to InterWorks, just kind of like a passion project thing, and post it to Tableau Public, which would then be reviewed by a senior resource, right? And we would kind of like help guide them along the way of saying like, okay, here's how we would tweak it, here's this and that. They would go post it out and do that. And I think, to your point, that direct application beyond just doing the training course, beyond just checking the boxes and like, oh, cool, I know how to do a table calculation. Oh, cool, I know all the different chart types and, the tables in the East and all that, right? That's great stuff. But I think that direct application was probably the biggest thing they did. And when they did that, especially in the community sense, after they did it once, they were far more likely to do it again than if they hadn't done any of that onboarding direct application skill. And a lot of those people who did that for many years went on to be people who have become ambassadors and visionaries and people on the forums who are very helpful. So definitely just want to underline what you said there on like having that onboarding process and some direct application, because we've seen it work wonders. And as a content person who manages a blog, I'm like, yes, please, more of this. We will take all your dashboards and all your tips and all the things that are helpful, because that just extends, our knowledge base out there. So that's really cool. And another thing I just wanted to point out too, that having all the knowledge resources kind of in a central hub is so valuable too, because any organization you're at, some people communicate more directly in email, some people communicate more directly in Slack. And if you're too committed to one of those communication chat lanes, rather than having your resources hosted in a centralized hub that you can promote across all those different channels, you could get in trouble. So I really like that idea of keeping it centralized, because it's going to make it more likely that people are going to access your resources regardless of how they get there, whether that's Slack or email, or they come over to your desk and talk to you, Sarah. So.
Yeah, I think it's best you over communicate, because I found, you like you say, Garrett, you get people that maybe live in Slack and never check email, or the opposite. So just cover all bases and promote, if you've got an upcoming webinar, whatever it may be, promote that in all those channels so nobody misses out. Because what always happens is you'll run something and then someone will say, oh, I had no idea this was happening. And it's like, I did post it everywhere, right? And this happens at work, it happens outside of work with other community stuff. So yeah, just over communicate. They maybe they're off one day and they miss the announcement, just so there's no harm in sharing it twice.
Yeah, Like on that, it's true that like, to simplify my life, at the beginning when I took the job, we had like each time someone would like to have a Tableau license, we had an onboarding call. So imagine each time at the end we said, okay, no, let's have like everything on our intranet. We had a beautiful page with onboarding videos, with everything, the steps. After, of course, when we had like some people, we give them like 1 month to make the mandatory training. And if they haven't done it, we were like, hey, you receive an email with the key, but there were like some links, right? You haven't touched them, you haven't done it. So that's way we could like monitor and also simplify our life a little better. The same with Tableau Doctor. Before, people could call us anytime during the day. So we changed the optic and we say, okay, now it's not possible anymore. You need like to have a meeting with us on these slots. So one slot was Tuesday afternoon, the other one Thursday afternoon. And there you have to explain us why, what is the question, why we did that. Because if it's very really a blocker, that's fine. They will like raise the meeting and explain what was the problem. If it's like easier to Google it than to call us, we save some time.
Yeah. I think, absolutely. 2 points on that. So on the onboarding piece, I think there's a ton of value in meeting people face to face, whether that's in person or virtually. But in a previous role, we did that in group sessions. So anyone that's come on in the last week, let's say, we would have a call with them, because I think in doing that, you find out a lot more about their use case, how they found you, but how did they. These aren't new starters. These are suddenly people that have been told they need to use Tableau, for instance, what they're trying to achieve. And it just helps you connect them and set them up for success, because oftentimes these people are a little bit lost. Someone's told them to go and do something. They don't quite know where everything is or what they're supposed to be doing. They may need some hand holding. So just being able to have that conversation can be so beneficial, and doing it in a group setting just avoids those. Otherwise you'll be doing that all day long, right? Just having meetings with people. And then on the Tableau Doctor piece, what we did in my previous role is all of the doctors, when they signed up, they had to fill in a form and indicate what their key skills, or not so much key skills, but the skills they wanted to help people with were. So maybe we had some people that were very strong in calculations, maybe had some people that were very strong in design. So then when people would book an appointment, they could pick a doctor that had the right skills aligned to the problem. So if they wanted some dashboard feedback, they would go to the design person, not the person that wanted to help out with tricky calcs, right? Because it's a different skill set. And we found that worked really, really well, just filtering that. And we had a calendar, so people on the doctor side could book in block out time when they will be available. So typically we had coverage like around the globe. We have a global organization, and so there was always going to be a slot not too far in the future that you could use.
I love that. That's really cool. You see that in things. There were a group of people at InterWorks who were doing a kind of like a professional coaching thing as just like an added benefit, and they had a similar thing set up. It's just like, here's this type of coach who uses these types of techniques or has this type of personality, which allows you to pick someone who you think you're going to gel with, or depending on what your goals are, push you. Potentially, if there's someone totally different than you, push you because they, fulfill something that you're uncomfortable or is a growth area for you. So I think that's really smart to apply that to the Tableau Doctor thing. We do have a question in the chat, and I'm curious. You might not know it offhand, but we have someone who's asking for a good example of like a sample style guide. Do you all know of any online resources or anything like that, or even just people who kind of create such things that are publicly available?
Yeah, I know of a few. So there's actually a JLL one out there on Tableau
awesome.
Public, but it's pretty old, so it's not the guidelines we currently use, but it gives you a good sense of what to include. There's also one on Tableau Public by the BBC, I believe. It's quite old now, but it's a pretty good one. And there's also one by I think they're called the London. It might be london.gov or London.org. But if you Google it, I'm sure you'll find them. They have an amazing style guide. It's I don't think it's specific to a biz tool, but it's a really, really good one. I took a lot of inspiration from.
Awesome. Those are great resources. I'm glad you knew those offhand, because I was like, maybe. You came ready.
I really love the GLL one. I have seen it on the public version, obviously.
Yeah.
And I really love like that you have like several icons or different color for depending of the action related to the worksheet. That I saw that when I saw that, I said, oh, it's very, very clever.
Yeah, I think on that one we have like purple triangles. So if there's a something is it's a filter, for instance, it will, if you click a bar and it will filter the rest of the page, it will have an icon. So rather than you saying click on the bar to filter, you can just use the icon, and it creates that like visual language that your stakeholders over time will become to understand. So they'll be like, okay, yeah, purple triangle, I know that means it's a filter. So we use something similar to that now, but it's not the purple triangle anymore.
It's updated.
I'm curious. You had mentioned, and this is so true of so many things, of siloed groups, like HR not talking to marketing, marketing not talking to accounting, and so on and so forth. In your experience, what are some things that you do to either get those people to talk? Are there like cross-functional groups that you put them in as part of an enablement strategy, or do you lean more towards, well, yes, we're all using this tool and the same resources, but we're going to kind of custom tailor enablement plans depending on your department? Is it a mix of both? I mean, how do you get people going in the same direction, I guess, is the broader question.
I think this is where things like steer codes that can come in really handy, or even Tableau or data champion programs where you get a representative or two from each organization and bring them together into forums where they regularly meet, talk about roadmaps and direction, or whatever that the topic of that steer code may be. But it's a way of bringing people together that wouldn't ordinarily talk to each other, and just getting them more familiar and connected with what other departments are doing. What I've found in previous organizations is, and even at JLL as well, just getting people talking and sharing what they're doing. So we have something at JLL called a show and share session. So every month we have an hour session where people can book a slot in advance that they want to talk, and maybe they want to present a project they've worked on or a dashboard they built, whatever that may be. That anyone can come and watch, and just learn what somebody else may be doing, because chances are they're probably doing something very similar, or they may have another use case for that solution. So just getting people into the same room and talking really helps break down those silos.
No, you can learn definitely from each other. So that I really love that. I have a question for you. What you will say to someone that wants to start an enablement program that has very little or no budget?
Which is often the case, right? This goes back to Garrett's person that's going to do it on the side, right? They can't afford an enablement person. But I think there's a ton of resources out there that you can use for free. So I think wherever possible, leveraging what is out in the communities already is so important. That doesn't mean you don't necessarily need a full-blown singing or dancing training program. You can leverage some content that's already out there. So people like Tableau Tim have got some great content. I think there's Alex the Analyst as well. He has some great content that covers all different kinds of tools, including things like SQL as well. So just leaning on the free content that you can find online, but making it easy for people. So maybe not saying, hey, go and do this whole course, but just picking out the elements that are going to be most useful to them. Things like newsletters, cost next to nothing to do and just keeps everybody connected. A lot of these things are free, right? So that the Tableau Doctor session, apart from time, is effectively free. Anything that you can do really and this is the core of our programs really, is encouraging people to give back, because the enablement can only do so much. I worked in teams of like 3 people covering the entire globe, and that's just not enough people, right? So I think what you need to do is upskill people that are out there in the teams to be able to help take some of that effort off. So it might be that those people then start leading internal user groups, or they become champions and they can support Tableau Doctor sessions, whatever it may be, but just getting them to take some of that weight off, and supporting these initiatives. Now, most of this can be run effectively for free. The only cost would be time. I don't think budget should be a blocker. Like, yes, you might not get the swag and the cool stuff, but maybe you could ask your vendor like for some of that for free. But even I know people like small little gifts. If you could even be a pen, right? It's whatever it may be. It's something that you can give them recognition for. But I think ultimately these activities help people advance in their careers. Just showing someone that's going above and beyond, I would like to think they would get recognition in their role for that, and they'll be advancing their career. So should they leave that organization, they would leave with more skills than when they started. So that I would like to think is an incentive in itself.
I have a question that's kind of for both of you, since you both have extensive experience in managing Tableau user groups specifically. What do you think the role and benefit is in terms of enablement of these Tableau user groups that are most often external to kind of an enablement program within an organization? What are some things that you find interesting or different about those settings in that context that helps users kind of grow along their journey?
I think it's similar to some of the things we've touched on before. So it's a
Mhm.
forum where people would come together. So you could have that breaking down silos and maybe meeting people that you wouldn't ordinarily get to speak to. It also helps with you may get, because typically these groups are open, anyone can join. Particularly, of course, the external groups are open to everyone, but you may get people that are inquisitive or they're brand new and they don't really know what it's all about. And I think those attending a tug can really be quite eye-opening for them. They may
Mhm.
just seeing the art of the possible, and maybe you have a guest that's talking about something cool they've done on Tableau Public, just showing them what it's not just all about business dashboards, and you can
Mhm.
actually do some really cool stuff. I think can be really beneficial. I, I've worked in organizations where I've tried to get external speakers into the tug. So it might be that we've got a big famous name in the Tableau world, right, coming in, which that drives a lot of excitement, but that person will also bring in some a flair that you might not have internally,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And no doubt they're going to be very passionate, which always helps. But I think myself included, you leave those sessions feeling very inspired. So every time we run a London tug, I leave thinking I need to get into Tableau, I need to build something, right? Which is how you want people to leave.
Yeah.
And it's great for networking. So again, whether that be internal or externally, just helping connect people and build out their networks professionally, I
Mhm.
think is so
Mhm.
important.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's bring a different perspective. If you can have internal to your internal user group, or you push people, your colleagues, to go to an external user group, it's the same. They will learn from different sector. They will say, okay, in this industry, your company, they are doing like this. Oh, that was interesting. Maybe I can apply the same technique for my financial dashboard. You know, it's like it's very interesting. Often, like Sarah said, like enlightening and inspiring. And for me, it was also like a way to have free resource. So each time we had an analytic talk, I put all the resource and the link on our
Yeah.
intranet page, so people could have access, because they will
Mhm.
probably not have registered themselves. So at least there they were like, hey, do you want to learn more about parameter? Yesterday we had a session on that on the analytic tag on the newbie tag, you know, like something like that. That was very good. And sometimes I still remember I had someone, so we had an internal user group with external people coming in. Some of our users like came to them and asked them questions, and they said, "Come on, why you didn't ask me?" But maybe they feel more comfortable asking to someone else, so that's also good. I
Yeah,
think.
I've seen that firsthand as well. We've had the pleasure of having some, so we had like Sean Miller, for instance, who runs Workout Wednesday, come and deliver a Workout Wednesday session for us at JLL, which was super cool. To just have that person there, I think it gives it a different perspective. But I remember I was working at a client once and they had a Tableau day. And so I was not involved in running this tug. It was all them. I was just in the audience, and somebody was showing some visits by Sam Parsons, and I just remember the whole room was just like, wow, like you can do this with Tableau. Like so the minds were blown. So I think it's so important that you show them different perspectives, and it's not all the same things that they might be doing day in, day out.
Mhm. Well, we are approaching 5 minutes on the hour. So, before we kind of open up to questions, are there any other odds and ends, anything you want to touch on that maybe we didn't touch on that's generally enablement focused, things people need to know, things that you're thinking about right now?
I think the question is for you, Sarah.
Whoever wants to answer, that's great. It's open-ended.
When it's too complicated,
Can you repeat the question? I was trying to read when you was I was reading the Q&A. So
no, that's okay. I know we have a question sitting there for sure.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say if there's any other odds and ends, anything that's on your mind recently that you want to cover before we kind of open it up generally to questions.
Yeah, I think just if you're in an organization and you don't have an enablement function, I think there's still some things that you can do to support fellow users. So maybe it's just as simple as if you've seen something cool online, like maybe it's Annabelle's analytics hug and you attended and there was a really cool talk that's relevant to your users, just sharing links out to that, sharing links out to blog posts. I know like the Flurlage twins often do some great stuff that's very applicable to how you use Tableau at work. So just pointing people to resources and getting them connected with that external community is so beneficial, and it doesn't need to take a ton of your time, but just making maybe 10 minutes every week to set aside to share content can be really helpful if you have nothing else in place. And even if you do, just supporting your enablement team, they're not going to mind, I'm sure. So yeah.
You need diverse resources because some people will need like to have blogs because they learn better when they read. Some people will have to have hands-on training, and so you need to have like diverse resources for everyone to be able to learn.
Yeah, that's so important. That's why we built that into our gamification program. So there's a bit of everything, because we recognize that everyone learns in different ways, as you say.
Absolutely. Well, here's the first question in the chat. Chad, if you are still here, feel free to ask your questions. We got a few minutes. We answered this one that Caitlin had posted in. So she was asking, do you have any good resources or style guides that specifically make sure Tableau dashboards are accessible? So she had mentioned things like WCAG 2.1, screen reader compatibility, high contrast mode, keyboard navigation, anything accessibility oriented.
Yeah. So, hey, Caitlin. The only one I know of is Chartability, which I'm sure you can find it if you Google. That goes through specific accessibility checks. It's not a style guide as such. I think the London style guide that I mentioned before, I'm pretty sure they've maybe got some of those things built in. But I think a lot of the times those style guides you find online as examples, they will have already done their checks, right? They would have checked that their colors are accessible, but they have some cool stuff that shows, if you're using this color, then don't use it with this color because it's not going to be accessible. But I don't know of anything specific, unfortunately.
No, that's great. That's good insight too. I think the Tableau community is very mindful, inherently, not to say that there can't be things that we check and look at more in depth, but I feel like usability and accessibility has always been pretty forefront of the Tableau's community mind. So it's a good point that most of those style guides are going to have a lot of that baked in.
Maybe one day we have to speak about that.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's a whole episode in and of itself, I can imagine. Yeah, and it's way more common than people think, for sure. Those accessibility things.
Yeah.
Well, it's looking like we are out of questions, but I'll put this up here. Just a reminder for everyone that you'll be able to find this recording in about 1 to 2 days. We'll be sending it via email, and again, it will be posted on YouTube probably within the next week. If you missed something, if you had to drop for whatever reason, or you just want to share this with someone, you'll be able to find it there. But with that, I just want to say like a big thank you, Sarah, for joining, and of course Annabelle for always being here, being a great co-host. But thanks for sharing all this wisdom. There's a lot. I feel like there are a lot of nuggets in here that I certainly wouldn't have thought about. So I just really appreciate you sharing your enablement expertise and for coming on and chatting.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. It's been great talking with you both.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And see you next time, everyone. Next month.
Yeah, next month. Yep, first Wednesday of next month, we'll have another episode of Data Forum. So we hope to see you there. If you're on this registration list, you'll already get the emails. But again, if you want to pass it along to whoever, we'd love to have more attendees. So thanks for joining.